my communication matrix. There's your sender, there's your receiver. If you look in the workbooks, you'll see a grid just like this, ready for us to compete. Or even complete, if we're going to use English. So, a sender and a receiver. These 2 points here indicate something that happens before you even start your communication. What is it? What do you have to do before you communicate? Anyone? Okay, so if this pen was something I was communicating, and this is the message, okay, so I'm going to be communicating to somebody in a moment, but okay, why didn't you catch it? Right, because you weren't ready. Okay, so why didn't you catch it? Because you weren't ready. I know, you missed it. Did it hit you? You okay? Good. So, make sure they're ready. Now, we've made sure that the person is ready to receive. What else do we need to ensure? What about who it's going to? For example, thanks, darling. There's nothing better than making love in the afternoon. Alright, what if you send that to the wrong person? Yeah, could be big trouble. So, right person and the right info. Good. Excellent. Now, we can send. What are we sending? This was what's being sent. What is it? Okay, we've got to send the right info. Good. We call it datum. Individual bits of data. Send the right datum over. This is what is communicated to the receiver. What about how we communicate that? What ways can we communicate? We can speak. What else? Email, by letter, video. Irrespective of however you want to do it, if you're speaking or emailing, it's got to be clear, hasn't it? Now, how good a communicator would I be if I... Excellent. So it's got to be clear. What about if I really talk really quickly to you and try to get all the information out really quickly? So we've got to talk about the make sure the right receiver's the right person, ready to receive, right person, right information, send. What's that? Hard to understand. So what have I got to do? Okay, paste. Now, anyone tell me a famous speech in the last 100 years that they know of? It's the most famous speech. Famous, any of them. Okay, I have a dream. Did he go, I have a dream that one day... No. I have a dream, pause. I have a dream, pause. That one day, pause. African American and white American, pause. It's 4 to 6 words per pause. You talk about the Winston Churchill speech, never, pause. In the field of human conflict, in the field of human conflict. 6 has so much been given by so few for so many. Great speeches. Not Bill Clinton. That's not such a great speech. But generally, they're great speeches. And in fact, people like Tony Blair would give good speeches. 6 words per pause. Whereas the Labour leader who became Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, would talk forever. And in fact, you will notice if you look at speeches, certainly his earlier speeches, he'd be talking in that very dull, very long talk voice and talk maybe 18, 19, 20 words before he'd actually take a breath. And he'd have to take a deep breath in like that because he'd spoken too much. He's got to look like Dracula. No wonder the populace turned off him. Just because he didn't speak correctly, brightly, positively. Very dour. Clear, paced. And lastly, volume. Because it just wouldn't work, would it? Volume. So we've got the right information going to the right person and they're ready to receive. They're looking or they're listening. They're ready. Here it comes. It's clear. It's paced. It's the right volume. What do they have to do? They've got to get it. And by that I mean they must receive it. This works particularly when it comes to things like email. What's the point of sending information if they don't receive it? It's pointless. And the last thing that is important for good communication is they've got to want it. Now that's important, because what happens if you're talking to somebody, giving them the information, but they don't want to hear it? Don't want to hear it. Don't want to see it. One of the challenges. Now, they've received the information. You've spoken clearly, paced, volume. What do they ultimately have to do? That's sort of on the way, but what do they have to do right at the end? Excellent. Excellent. They have to understand it. They want to understand. Now, do you remember we talked about the barriers to communication? What's going to stop them? What do they have to do once they have the information, it's here at the ear, before it gets to the brain, where they now understand it, what do they have to do with it? Okay, so they have to process it, yeah? Okay. Process the info. Now there's a stage here. What's going to stop them from processing? Okay, so too much information stops them from processing it, yeah? Too much information, if you don't speak clearly. You know, I'd say clear and concise even. If you're too verbose, you confuse people, it inhibits. So what do you need to give them so that they can process the information and understand it? You've got to give them something. We talk about it in making people feel more comfortable. You need to give them space and time. Time to process. And that means you stop talking. All processed. Good. Excellent. Now, that's 75% of the communication process. Something's going on here that's a two-way process. And if you did all of this, you'd be a better communicator than most of the people on the planet. But if you do this, you become an ultra communicator. The best of the best. Anyone know what it is? Alright, let's work on this. So I'm going to use this technique now. You ask me questions and I'm going to use this aspect in that and we can go from there. Is that okay? Brilliant, was that okay? Fantastic. Okay, so I'd like somebody to ask me any question they want. We're going to use the communication process and I am going to use it both in answering and asking questions to you. Is that okay? Has anyone got any questions to ask on how we're going to process this? No? Okay, good. But any questions and maybe you'll start getting it. Anything you like? Okay. Alright, so what you're asking me is what's my favourite colour? Good. So if I said to you I'm a big Arsenal supporter and my favourite colour is red, would that make sense? Okay, fantastic, good. Anyone else? What car do I drive? Well, that's a bit of a question at the moment because I'm in the process of looking at two different cars, but if I asked you another question, what sort of car do you think I drive? Okay, I know I'm not answering your question directly. Okay, well I'll show you some pictures later. Alright, Good. Any other questions? What's my favourite food? Well, first of all, good question. Second of all, looks like, wouldn't you say any food is my favourite food? Good. So if I said to you, like, we like going to Italy on holiday because we enjoy the food there, does that give you an answer to your question? Brilliant. What am I doing? What am I doing with every question? Oh, I wouldn't say I'm deflecting it. When you said to me, what's my favourite food? And I went, well, if I said to you that we go to Italy because we like the food, would that help you give you an answer? What am I doing to every time you ask me something? Okay, another word, begins with A. There's the A for you. Understand, no, understand begins with a U. All right, good. I acknowledge. And here's the point. If you acknowledge when someone talks to you that what they've said to you, you're showing that you understand them. And when someone asks you something and you go, okay, so what you're asking me is this, or tells you something and you exhibit your understanding, you're showing the sender you understood. And if the sender tells you something and then says, does that make sense to you, as you've probably seen me do throughout the whole training, he's looking for your acknowledgement. He wants to make sure you've understood. And if you talk to someone and you're making sure that they understand where you're going from, because you're asking for clarification, you're asking to make sure they understood, how do they feel about that? Does that make sense? What are you saying as the sender? That you're interested in them and you want them to understand. That ultimately, okay, you care about them, but really, what are you saying? Yek Shemesh, I like you. Like before, you're saying, I like you enough that I want you to understand what I'm saying so that you can have a good conversation with me. And that's the ultimate essence of communication. Fantastic. We'll call it a break there, and then after lunch we'll go into more detail on excellent customer service. Great.